much for joining me. Thank you for clicking onto this video. And as you can see by the title of this video, we are talking all things marriage. June, if you haven't seen my previous video, I just explained, please don't mind the noise in the background. I think my neighbor is doing something. But in the previous video, I was basically telling us of my experience really about July, and it has been 14 years. We just celebrated 14-year 14-year anniversary, and what I think I'm going to do for us is that I am going to take 14 lessons that I've learned in our journey. What I'm going to do in the next 3 weeks, we're going to split that up into chunks. 5 lessons this week, 5 lessons the following week, and then 4 lessons the following week. Just nothing serious, chilled vibes. As you can see, I'm chilling here. Go grab yourself a cup of coffee. I have mine. Just enjoy and learn what I have come to learn in the 14 years. So for me, I think those that know me know that marriage was really not something that people who grow up saying, I want to get married and all of Cinderella stuff. I never had that. I only started really considering the idea when I arrived in varsity or sometime then. But there was still a lot of work to be done, But with God's amazing grace, He did something very, very amazing for me. And He came and He knocked me off my feet. And though I married later than some of my peers, but I think that it was a perfect time for me to have actually taken that decision, because I had already decided certain things about who I was and what I wanted. And it was really by the grace of God that He was able to take me through that journey. So lesson number 1 that I have learned in the 14 years is that you will never stop growing. Because you marry the same person, it goes without saying, you become and evolve throughout the process. So it's critical that you never, ever stop growing, or else you will put a ceiling on yourself, right? And the implication really of that is that if you don't stop growing, it means that you will become a student of your partner, of your husband. And that's one thing that God has really taught me, just to grow with Him in every area and every season. Is it easy? No, because you come into marriage thinking that this is the kind of person you're getting married to. And yeah, you get into it and you think, this is not what I signed up for. But what can we do? What can we say? It comes with the terrain and the territory. So I think lesson number 1 is that never stop growing. But also for me, I think one thing that I've learned, and which I thank God that He introduced me on very early on, I bumped into submission very early on in my marriage. And it's one thing that has really, I believe, saved my marriage. Because in this culture, we are taught to be independent. We are taught to do all sorts of things. And I really don't subscribe to that, because I don't believe that's how God ordained marriage. There is a God ordained way of doing life, and it's not what culture teaches us. And we would do well by learning how God has ordained marriage to be. So for me, I think bumping into submission, respect and submission, really was able to hone in. Because what happens with women is that because we grow quicker than men, we tend to be overbearing. So if you do not have an understanding of what submission is, you're going to end up ruining the very thing that God has given you that's supposed to be a blessing. But that's a discussion for another day. I write a lot on that in my other book. But I think just for me, the lesson that has really, really helped me in marriage is understanding that there are roles and responsibility. There are roles that God has ordained, and there's a methodology that you're supposed to do this thing with, or else I would have really broken this thing a long time ago. Lesson number 3, that has been really, I know all of them, I'm gonna say all of them are really crucial, but dying to self. And I know most of you are gonna be asking, what does that mean? Dying to self means that there are certain ideologies, there are certain preferences, there are certain things that you come into a relationship with. And if you don't die to those ideologies, you're going to get into a collision, head-on collision with your husband. And really, this marriage won't work. And I think it's not only actually marriage, because dying to self is a sanctification process of Christianity. It's one of the key ingredients that makes any believer thrive as a believer, is dying to self. For you to be able to understand and go through all the things that Jesus talks about in the Word, you need to be a person who understands what dying to self means. When he says turn the other cheek, forgive 40 times, 70 times 7 for the same sin. Those are the things that the flesh doesn't want to do naturally, but those are the things that, because we are believers, we are required to do. So dying to self really helped me a lot in marriage, because I ended the whole idea that I had about, I have these rights, I must do this, he must do that, and I must do that. Anytime that the Holy Spirit convicted me of anything, I would have to succumb to that. And that, I believe, has saved my marriage, and actually many other marriages, I believe. I'm not sure if I'm on point number 4, 5, but I think the 5th point I would say, which is really key, is that you need to understand each other's visions. And what I mean about this is that when you get married, you obviously have ideas of what you want to build separately before you become a couple. And it's good to understand all of that. But I think when you get married, you need to create space for each other to thrive in those God-given visions that the Lord has given. And this I'm going to throw in there, that it could be that one day they will merge and become one thing, because there's a reason why God put you together. And the reason is not what people think marriage is about. It's not to make me feel good or be happy. It's about the kingdom, right? There are things that the Lord wants done in the kingdom, and he chooses 2 people to get into marriage so that they accomplish that one thing. And that's a lifelong process, right? For you to discover what exactly it is that you are in this for. But I think key to that is just getting in and understanding what each other's strengths are, what do they bring to the table, and major in those than the negatives. I'm not sure if that makes sense. But comment in the comment section below. Let me know what you think. What would be your takeaway from the 5 points that I've talked about? And I'd like to have a discussion. Let's have this conversation, because many people getting married in our days, they think it's about frivolous things, get a big house, get a big car. And I mean, all those things are well and good, but if there is no intrinsic value in you as an individual, it won't work. I mean, there are people in big houses living alone, so it really doesn't. It's not the size of the house, it's not the car, it's not the things that people make it about, but what is the purpose behind your marriage? Why did God join you together? I know I'm rambling. Now, I'll meet you in the next video. Thank you so much for joining me in this video. See you in another video. Thank you.